Hey guys, what is going on? Carter here. This video we're going head to head on two EDC staples. The Benchmade Mini Onslaught here, and of course the quintessential Paramilitary 2. The two particular versions we're looking at, Paramilitary 2, black DLC coated blade, camo G10 here. This is just your standard issue, well, production, you know, not a sprint or anything like that. A little bit extra on the cost for the camo G10 and blacked out blade, usually. It depends. Next up is the limited edition carbon fiber Mini Onslaught. Now the stats that I pulled for both of these are just the standard stats. So the regular G10 Mini Onslaught with the satin blade and the regular black G10 with the satin blade Paramilitary 2. So I'm not taking into consideration the carbon fiber because really I want this video to be, you know, EDC choice between the two. Which one I prefer, and maybe help you decide if you prefer one or the others. First off, the reason why I am taking these head to head is because they're quite similar. They're both about the same size. They're both lightweight. You know, they're medium to light duty blades. Some may consider them tactical. Some that don't agree with the tactical term may just say they're good EDC all-around slicers. They both feature fairly thin blades, but we'll talk about that a little bit more. But they're excellent cutters. Both of them are excellent cutters. They both actually feature kind of non-traditional locking systems. Axis lock here and compression lock here. And just by non-traditional, I mean not a frame lock or a liner lock or a mid-lock or back lock. So let's start. Let's look at the specs. Alright. Let's do blade length. The Benchmade Mini Onslaught is listed as 3.45. The blade length of the Paramilitary 2 is listed at 3.44. So basically they're saying it's the exact same. You can see here that that is basically the case. If we compare cutting edges, you get maybe a slight bit more out of the Onslaught just because of the safety choil you have here. For me, I'm going to give that to the Paramilitary 2. I'd rather cut into the cutting length and have a safety choil, both to choke up on so you don't lose any of the controllability. The Mini Onslaught doesn't really have that. You can kind of come up here, but it feels so much safer and more natural when you actually have a choil. But you can come up here and do that. But if the lock were to fail on this, your finger is getting sliced. Whereas on the Paramilitary 2, it shouldn't. I mean, obviously, if there's enough force, it'll knock your finger out of the way and it'll be bad. But you know, just for a regular like close, you should be good to go. Overall length. The Paramilitary 2 takes that with a length of, let me find it here, I printed them out, I'm not going to memorize them, sorry guys, 8.28 inches on the Paramilitary 2. The Benchmade is 7.78 inches. So quite a bit difference, and you can see that here, and it's mainly well, it's obviously the handle because we already said the blade lengths are the same. Now, which one do I give the edge to on that? Hard to say. On one hand, for me and my size hands, Paramilitary 2 feels better. I feel like I get a full purchase on the Paramilitary 2, nothing hanging off. I think the ergos in terms of the blade shape is much better on the Paramilitary 2 for me, and I think most people would agree based on what I've heard. However, it does make for a longer knife in the closed length position. So even though you're looking at about the same cutting length, the same blade length, you know, this is going to be taking up more length in your pocket. The Benchmade, I have gotten used to it, and it feels a lot better than it did originally, but there's still some funky stuff going on here. However, the fact that it's contoured like that really makes it feel good in hand. So really I'd have to say it's a draw. This one kind of has better shape in terms of that. However, these are flat G10 scales, and nothing beats contoured handles like this. I mean, it's just, you don't get any sort of, I mean, I get a little bit of a hot spot here, but you know, on this, And you really only notice when you go back and forth, and that's why I like doing these comparisons. I never really noticed any issues with the ergos on the Para 2, but after you put your hands on this and you feel how round and how nice it is, and then you grab this, you can feel, you know, these edges right here in your hand. Not a huge deal, but, you know, we're talking, these are both excellent knives, by the way. Beautiful, wonderful, perfectly executed knives. So really I'm just talking, you know, minor details that may sway you one direction or the other. But of course, conversely, you're looking at quite a bit thicker of a blade. So yes, it feels more comfortable. You know, and that's one of the things, right? You know, grabbing like a broom handle, you know, feels good because it's round, but you know, that's thick, and I know that sounds dirty, sorry, trying not to be. So you got to remember that's going in your pocket, so that's a decision to make there. You can see it's quite a bit thicker. I mean, the Para 2 almost is as thick as the standoffs in just one and this side of the G10. So it's a lot thicker, actually. I'm surprised. Almost this whole G10 slab thicker right there. So that's definitely something to consider when you're putting that in your pocket. What's going to feel better there. What else we got? Weight. The Benchmade, and of course we're talking about the G10 version, not the carbon fiber. I think this one sheds a little bit more weight, the carbon fiber. This is very light, but I want to compare the actual production versions because there's also a carbon fiber version of this, so it wouldn't really be fair. The weight on this is 3.9 ounces. Weight on this guy is 3.75 ounces. So you do get lighter weight with the Paramilitary 2. Not by a ton, you know, we're talking less than 1/4 of an ounce. But if that's something that concerns you, it's definitely worth noting. And of course that weight comes from the thicker G10 that you're going to find on here. I'm thinking that these two are probably about right, exactly the same. So this carbon fiber definitely cuts down, you know, about 1/4 of an ounce or so. Now, steel, D2 CPM S30V. I'm not going to talk about steel performance. Both great steels. I'm not going to talk at length about it because I am not, you know, I'm willing to admit I'm not the most well-versed on steels. I know kind of ballpark, you know, big figures steel talk, but when it comes down to, especially the tool steels, I'm just not that well-versed in tool steels. So I just want to make a note of those steels, so it's up to you to decide which one you think you would prefer. Me, I could care less one or the other. I consider them both great steels. And from what I've read and heard and seen performance-wise, you know, they're both fine for me. But you may have a different thought on that. Next up is blade thickness. Blade thickness on the Paramilitary 2 is 9/64 of an inch or 0.14 inches. The blade thickness on this is 0.070 inches. So quite a bit thinner. And the Paramilitary 2 is thought of as having a thin blade anyways, and the Benchmade Mini Onslaught takes that even more to the extreme. You can see that the stock that it's starting off with is almost like 1/4, you know, 25% thinner on this, and then it just immediately thins out. I mean, you can see there that it is quite a bit thinner. I mean, they're both, like I said, they're both fairly thin, but Benchmade definitely takes it further. So, you know, and make it more of a slicer, you can get a little bit more blade bend on it, kind of like a fillet knife. Not a lot, you know, we're talking very little, but so it might help you get into some better cutting if you're doing fine slicing and things like that. But it would also mean, you know, the possibility of breaking that blade is a little bit greater. So keep that in mind. With the Paramilitary 2, you've got a little bit more thickness to work with on there. So that pretty much goes for stats and ergos and things like that. Let's get into some of the details. As far as carry, in my opinion, you're looking about the same. You've got about, you know, this is obviously a much wider clip hanging out, but this one's a little bit longer. They're both really about, you know, you've got about that much sticking out on the Para 2 and about that much sticking out on the Onslaught. So possibly a little bit more on the Mini Onslaught, but not a ton. Deployment. Deployment's easier with the